Hey there, everyone. Ready for another deep dive? Today, we're going to venture into the world of science fiction, more specifically into time travel movies.
Time travel, a theme that never goes out of style, right?
That's true, and to guide you on this journey, we have Samantha, a die-hard film lover and practically an expert in science fiction.
Come on. But it's true that this theme has always fascinated me. After all, who hasn't imagined going back in time to change something? Or making more jokes about the future to see what awaits us?
That's right. And what fascinates me the most about these movies is how they use time travel to explore deeper themes. You know, free will, the consequences of our actions.
No doubt about it, and we see this starting from the classics.
Like Planet of the Apes from 1968. Wow, Planet of the Apes. What an impactful movie. That ending.
It's shocking, right? A very strong social critique disguised as science fiction.
Exactly. And speaking of classics, we can't leave out Back to the Future, right? Adventure. Adventure, humor, romance, and it also makes us think about how our actions in the present can influence the future.
And the chemistry between Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd. Impossible No Love.
True. Back to the Future is one of those movies you can watch multiple times and still have fun, but stepping away from the classics and moving to something more modern, Interstellar from 2014, is breathtaking.
What a view, right?
Absolutely. And Lola isn't satisfied just with the visual spectacle. It delves into the scientific concepts of time travel, using Einstein's relativity and time dilation.
Yeah, he did his homework really well. By the way, speaking of directors who like to mess with our heads, Tenet from 2020 is another one that really makes you think.
Tenet is for those who enjoy a challenge, that concept of time inversion.
Incredible action scenes, an impeccable soundtrack, and a plot that keeps you glued from start to finish.
But time travel in cinema isn't just about complex movies, right? The Time Machine made from a hot tub is proof of that. A light and fun comedy that uses time travel to tell a story of friendship and nostalgia.
It's true, and it even plays with the cliches of the genre, right? Who hasn't dreamed of going back in time and reliving the most memorable moments of their youth? I would go straight to the 90s. Going back to the list, Time Trap from 1993 is another one that uses time travel in a really interesting way. The character gets stuck in the same day, reliving everything over and over again.
And with each repetition, he gets the chance to change his actions. And all of this, learning new things and becoming a better person.
It's a beautiful life lesson. And speaking of movies that make us reflect, Looper from 2012 presents a dystopian future where professional assassins eliminate targets sent from the past.
It's a movie that keeps you hooked from start to finish, and the performances by Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Bruce Willis are spine-chilling.
True. And we continue in this suspenseful vibe with 12 Monkeys. From 1995, a dense atmosphere, impeccable performances, and a plot that leaves you thinking for hours after the movie ends.
12 Monkeys raises an important question. Can we change the future? Or are we trapped in a predetermined destiny? It makes us rethink all. Or are we already trapped in a predetermined destiny?
It makes us question everything, right? Another movie that plays with this idea of destiny is Time Crimes from 2007.
The protagonist gets stuck in a frustrating time loop and needs to figure out how to get out of this mess.
How about we take a break from suspense movies and move on to something more thought-provoking? You're talking about Primer, right? Exactly. Primer from 2004 is one of those films that challenges you to deeply understand the mechanics of time travel.
Yes, you need to pay attention to every detail to be able to follow the plot, but the effort is worth it.
For sure. Now, Terminator 2, Judgment Day from 1991 needs no introduction, right? It's a landmark in science fiction with revolutionary special effects for its time. And the story, right? A landmark in science fiction with revolutionary special effects for its time.
And the story, right? That clash between the Terminator and the T-1000, breathtaking.
And the role reversal of Arnold Schwarzenegger, from villain in the first movie to hero in the second.
Brilliant. And speaking of iconic lines, Star Trek First Contact from 1996 has its own too.
Resistance is futile.
Impossible to forget. And this movie puts the Enterprise crew on a crucial mission to prevent the Borg from altering the past and consequently the future of humanity.
Epic. To wrap up this first part of our list, let's go with a movie that mixes horror, comedy, and time travel. Army of Darkness from 1992, Ash Williams versus
Dead dives in the Middle Ages. It could only lead to chaos.
And it's this mix of genres that makes the movie so fun and memorable. But we continue this time journey in the next part of our deep dive.
That's right. We still have a lot to explore in this fascinating universe of time travel in cinema.
Hey there, everyone. Back for another session of Temporal Mind Benders with us.
That's it. Ready to dive into the paradoxes and theories of time travel.
For sure. And since we're talking about paradoxes, what's the most famous one when it comes to time travel?
Without the grandfather paradox, right?
The classic.
If you went back in time and, I don't know, killed your grandfather before he met your grandmother, would you be preventing your own birth? But then, if you were never born, how could you have gone back in time?
It's mind-blowing. And several movies that we mentioned, like Back to the Future and 12 Monkeys, they deal with this paradox in very different ways.
That's true. In Back to the Future, Doc Brown even explains that small changes in the past can have big consequences in the future.
It's like the picture of the mate slowly disappearing.
Exactly. In 12 Monkeys, the idea of an unchangeable fate is stronger. Bruce Willis's character travels to the past to try to stop the spread of a virus. But in the end, he ends up being part of the very chain of events that leads to the catastrophe.
Wow, 12 Monkeys really leaves you with that feeling that no matter how hard we try, there's no escaping fate.
It's really distressing. But what about the movies that explore time loops? Groundhog Day is a great example, with Phil Connors stuck in the same day, living the same thing over and over again.
And the interesting thing is that the movie uses this loop to show the character's evolution, right? At first, he just wants to get ahead, but then he starts using the time to learn new things.
Helping people, yeah, and he ends up becoming a better person. It's almost a life lesson. Right. Like, sometimes we need to look back at our mistakes and learn from them to be able to move forward.
And speaking of movies that make us reflect, Interstellar also uses time travel in a really smart way, right?
Yeah, and what I think is even more impressive, Gal, is that Nolan relies on real scientific concepts, like Einstein's relativity and gravitational time dilation, to explain time travel in the plot.
Yeah, you can see that he doesn't use these concepts just for the sake of it. There's a concern to create a plausible scientific basis, even if it's dealing with fiction, right?
For sure. And speaking of directors who care about the details, Primer is another example of a movie that makes you scratch your head trying to understand the mechanics of time travel.
That's true. Primer is an independent film, a low-budget one, but the complexity of the story and the scientific approach are amazing.
Impressive, right? And still talking about movies that made an impact, Terminator 2 also deserves a highlight. Revolutionary visual effects for the time. And it's a story that keeps you hooked from start to finish.
Not to mention the action. That showdown between the Terminator and the T-1000 is breathtaking.
That's true. And Terminator 2 also raises the question of free will versus destiny, right? Is the future already written? Or can we change the course of things?
It's the question that never goes away. And Star Trek First Contact also makes us think about the importance of protecting the past to ensure the future of humanity.
Yeah, the crew of the Enterprise's fight against the Borg is spine-chilling. They need to stop the Borg from altering the past and, in doing so, change the entire course of history.
An extremely important mission. And to wrap up this part, Army of Darkness. Even though it's a horror comedy, the movie also makes us think about the consequences of messing with the past.
Ash, without meaning to, ends up bringing the Necronomicon to the Middle Ages and causes chaos.
Poor thing. But it is, as they say, right. With great power comes great responsibility.
It's true, in the end, even in the most unassuming films, time travel can serve as a warning about the consequences of our actions.
We need to be careful with what we do in the present, because it can have a huge impact on the future.
Exactly. So, what do you think? Is time travel just a fantasy of fiction? Or do you believe that one day we will actually be able to travel through time?
It's hard to say, but we love to think about the possibilities. Right.
And the films we discussed today show that time travel is not just about technology, but also about choices and consequence, and the impact we have on the world around us.
I completely agree. And to wrap up the second part of our deep dive, here's the question. Which of these films made you think the most about time travel?
Tell us in the comments and get ready for the last part of our dive, where we will explore even more the mysteries and paradoxes of time travel in cinema.
Hey there, everyone. Back to the last part of our deep dive. We explored so many amazing films. We discussed paradoxes, theories, wow, that's true. But there's still so much cool stuff to talk about time travel. Right? It does. Like, which of these films left you more puzzled after watching? The one you thought about for days?
It's hard to choose just one. But first, it definitely left me quite intrigued. That ending, with multiple versions of the characters, each in a different timeline. Wow, yes. First, it's that movie you need to watch several times.
Grab a notebook and write everything down to understand. Exactly.
But you know what I think is the coolest thing about this type of movie? How it makes you think outside the box, you know. It challenges you to question the laws of physics and imagine the possibilities even if they seem impossible.
No doubt, and Tenet does that too. Right? Nolan plays with our perception of time. Perception of time, reversing events and creating action scenes that, wow.
Tenet is a visual and mental delight, and the soundtrack, perfect for creating that atmosphere of suspense and mystery.
True. Speaking of mystery, Groundhog Day. He approaches time travel in a more, let's say, poetic way, right?
Yeah, the idea of the character reliving the same day over and over.
And having the chance to change, learn, and become a better person.
Exactly. Groundhog Day shows us that sometimes the most important journey isn't through space, but rather within ourselves.
Yeah, seeking self-knowledge, personal evolution is like being able to go back in time within our own minds and do things differently.
That's beautiful. And speaking of going back in time and doing things differently, Planet of the Apes, right?
It makes us question our own humanity. Wow, seeing humans being treated like animals by the apes is a shock.
A movie that makes you think about what really makes us human. You know, about how we relate to other species and to the planet.
From the classic A Time Traveler. And since we're talking about classics, Back to the Future. Who doesn't love this movie?
It's impossible not to love it. A fun, exciting movie that marked the childhood of so many people.
The story, the soundtrack, the special effects, everything about Back to the Future is iconic. And I think that's the great magic of time travel movies.
Right? They transport us to other times, make us question reality, and dream about the possibilities with everything that time and space can offer us.
That's true. And we hope this deep dive has inspired you to revisit these classics and discover new movies that explore this fascinating theme.
And who knows, right? One day time travel will become a reality. Then we could go back in time and watch all those movies again as if it were the first time.
That's amazing. But for now, we stay here in the present, thanking you for joining us on this cinematic journey.
And remember, the future is not yet written. We are the ones who build our own destiny with every choice, with every step we take.
Thanks, everyone. And until next time.